are live.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Zenny 62 Live. And it is my pleasure and honor, actually, to have and host Jesse Smith, who's running for mayor of Oakland. He's one of Oakland's great stories and very active in communicating the modern consciousness of the city. And he's decided to point his powerful and considerable energies towards seeking the office where if he won, he would be Oakland's 51st mayor. He's taking on the incumbent Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, as well as a slate of, I believe, 10 other people, right? Unless it's grown since last
That's
time.
about right.
Yeah. So, Jess, welcome. And hey, first of all, tell them who is Jesse Smith?
Well, I've been an activist in Oakland for, since Occupy, I've been extremely active, especially at City Hall and with a lot of formal politics. But I've always been an activist my entire life, going back to probably childhood. I was radicalized. Grew up I grew up in the drug war. My parents were marijuana farmers, and so grew up on that side of life, and came out to Oakland around 2000, and I've made it my home. I love it here. It's where I've naturally gravitated to, and I love being a part of everything in the city, and it's very inspiring to contribute. There's so much energy here, from activism to art and culture. Anything you want to do out here, you can always count on a lot of talented, energetic people to back you up on it. So my natural progression, I worked on campaigns in the past, and throwing my hat in this cycle, mostly to demonstrate how people can run for mayor themselves or run for any office, because I think that's the next step in ranked choice voting.
Mm-hmm.
We're pioneers in this, and in ranked choice voting, you get to vote your conscience, and then you also get to vote for your safe choice. And if a friend of yours is running, someone from your block or your church, someone who maybe their single issue is your single issue,
mm-hmm.
you can go ahead and vote for them. So I think there's a lot of important work that each candidate can do, and we need more voices. I would like to see a candidate from every neighborhood in Oakland, each one an expert in their neighborhood, able to connect with their own community. And through a network of candidates, we can reach out and mobilize more people to vote, and more intelligently select whoever wins. Basically, a candidate like myself, I can transfer votes to a candidate with a broader platform. I have a very narrow platform. I'm very single issue. My issue is police. And through that, I can connect with particular voters that might not have even voted. But even those who already would vote, through me, they can be assured that that my endorsement is a seal of approval. Because by the time you get to a candidate who has a wider platform, it gets a little tepid, all of their positions. They don't come with that extreme or radical appeal on all their positions. But candidates like myself can help connect the community to those candidates.
What was the aha moment where you said, okay, I'm going to file papers and I'm going to insert myself into this argument, into this contest, into this discussion, all of the above?
Well, I started something called the Get Free Project, which is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's being run by other people, and they are training candidates for 2020. And I've always pushed people to be candidates, to get out there, to speak for their communities. And after a while, I realized I just have to do this myself and show how it's done. And working on other campaigns in the past, I've seen my ideas go forward, and as a ghostwriter, I get quoted, and people support my ideas a lot without attribution. Never was really seeking that before. But now is a time when I'm going to go ahead and go through the process. It's not something I want to do. It's something I feel I should do for the community.
What is it, from your point of view, that's wrong with the police?
It goes back. There is a large. I was actually having a conversation about this today. Mm-hmm. The police, Oakland police in particular, are part of a nationwide network through unions, through fraternities, also through business interests, and also through affiliation with other agencies. And so when the interests they serve, it's not the community. We can be as discontent with the police as we want, and that won't change anything. The police serve themselves, of course. Every institution has to, but they are so far removed from our interests that there needs to be a radical change. Now, by the time we have mass rape and trafficking of minors, mm-hmm. and this is just so morally repulsive that this is an emergency. It's a crisis, and the energy and the language we use should reflect that, and our goals should be radical and extreme. There's really nothing to hold on to. The police, it's over half the budget, or roughly half mm-hmm. of the discretionary budget. $250 million a year. That's a lot. I mean, they're the biggest bosses politically. A lot of people don't really understand this, but I've learned this from being in the political scene. Might be at a developer meeting.
Yep.
And there's a cop there, part of the union, and he's just there to observe because he's part of the union as a cop, and unions are also involved in construction. So there's just a lot of natural political power that individual police have. Mm-hmm. Individual police can wield more political sway than a particular elected official, and together there are times when I believe I see individual members on the council not make a move or make a move based on what the police want. And the police really shouldn't be the most powerful political entity in the city. And the budget reflects that. That's proof that they are. They get most of the money. And that's irrational. It's just gotten out of hand. And we need to get control of it.
Yeah, I have to remark, you bring up something that reminds me of a number of instances where I wasn't sure who a mayor was. I wasn't sure if it was the mayor at the time, be it Jean Quan or Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, to provide the most recent examples, or it was the head of the police union and the police chief. You know, we've come to, and I'd like your reaction to this, because I think we've come to a point in Oakland where it seems to me that our elected officials are actually afraid to manage their own police. And so quite literally, that had to be taken away from them to an extent, which is how we got to the police commission. And that's a very short way of describing a very long process. And I might add, my way may be controversial to some in terms of its description, but it's simplistic. I admit that. But you know what I'm saying. But nonetheless, I think the sentiment is there, right?
Well, with the police commission, that had been the life's work of particular people, for well over a decade, mm-hmm. Trying to get this commission put in. And I was very close to the process in the last few years, and I watched groups try to raise a bunch of money to get the signatures, and the idea of a charter amendment, and how difficult that is to get done. And then all of a sudden, boom, the rape scandal happened.
Yep.
And the political will was there. That's why we have a police commission, is because of Celeste WAP. And mm-hmm. I would also like to mention that had it been a different victim, we might not have gotten a police commission out of it. It might have gotten swept under the rug or been handled entirely differently. The way she comported herself in that most vulnerable of positions You know, we have a great debt of thanks to give to her.
Yep.
Just for being herself. You know, it's heroic. Like James Shaw, he says he's just saving himself. Well, that can still be heroic. So it really, for all the process and all the machine and all the careful intention, it really came down to some chaos and an explosion.
Hey,
now we have this.
For my viewers who may not know, who are new to Oakland, explain to them who Celeste WAP is and what happened from your point of view.
Celeste WAP was a minor who had been trafficked from an early age, and she eventually came into basically she was being pimped by OPD eventually. She met a cop by the name of O'Brien. This individual cop, O'Brien, his wife died from 2 gunshots to the head.
Right.
Officially was ruled a suicide. There was the chief investigator on that, a gentleman by the name of Gant, believes it was murder. A lot of people do, the family does, and there was, what we do know for a fact is that the way that they handled the investigation was atrocious, and they gave ridiculous favoritism to him because he was a cop. They didn't investigate him as a suspect, and there's currently a lawsuit going on with this. Eventually, this individual, O'Brien, committed suicide and left a suicide note, which the public is still yet to see. Inside the suicide note, he talked about Celeste WAP, and this is when the revelations started coming forward. And the police chief went at the time, dismissed it. People who were high up in the process, Holmgren, Coleman, Lois, this triumvirate of gangster cops is how a lot of people see them. They had her destroy evidence of what happened. As the story unfolds, we find out that OPD was also trafficking her to other police agencies, passing her around. She would get called by cops that she didn't know. They were passing around her number. She was basically their property. They were pimping her. And from my experience, I've been saying this for years in City Hall, that OPD is involved in dealing drugs and pimping. And I would always get a weird look from that. You know, it sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but where I live on San Pablo, no, I see it. It's just common knowledge. And it's nothing new, and it's nothing even that shocking. But she has come to represent this phenomenon. And it was a huge shakeup, and at the end of the day, basically no one was punished. The crimes that were committed, these police should be on the sexual predator list. They should be on the Megan's Law thing, but they're not. And that's the story. And the way that worked out was the same old process. Unions, politics. Right now, there's a kind of a cult-like scenario with OPD. They're so removed from the rest of society that they have this alternate universe, this alternate facts, and they have this grand conspiracy theory about Celeste WAP being a political tool to set them up to try to ruin their good name. And they really believe this, and they're still harassing her online and in person, and it's and nothing's being done about this. Their culture is hostile to her, and there's no sign of any regret, of any penitence, and certainly no punishment has occurred.
Is anyone,
like I said, this is
I just had a question. Well, full disclosure, I interviewed Jasmine for 23 minutes here on Zenny 62.
Great.
Yeah, it's one of the more one of the harder interviews I've done, just because she's, and you'll see it, she comes off as what she is, an innocent, and I mean, just straight out. But I was going to add that in as a full disclosure, but also ask you, why do you think the people basically look the other way with respect to not treating the police officers involved, let alone the Oakland police in general, with greater disciplinary action? And what does this say about the police commission, or can it, and I don't know the answer to this question, can it take a retroactive stance on a happening like that?
That's a question. That's a question a lot of people have been asking, and the point I've been raising is that we need to clear house at the very least, if not for her sake, then just for the sake of all of us, because we're all in some way dirtied by this. That it goes on. Every individual involved in hurting her or covering up the officers, that includes people who are top lieutenants right now, people who are top investigators. They all got promoted after this. It also includes Kirkpatrick, because she was involved in promoting these people and rewarding them after their horrible acts. And the police commission has that power to fire her. Now, I watched the police commission very closely. They're working out all their basic rudimentary protocols right now. They're trying to figure out how they're going to communicate. They're trying to figure out how they're going to do intake. They just got an app developed for people to report police misconduct. So they're right at the beginning stages. There's a lot of busy work that they've got to get done before they can get down to the business that they were voted in to do. There's a landslide election that got this created. So they have a mandate. They have more mandate than any politician in Oakland. And we know what that mandate is. We basically want justice for Celeste WAP in particular, and for all of us, really.
A couple of people have questions. Barry Lee asks, would you as mayor ask the FBI or Justice Department to investigate the Oakland Police Department?
Well, the feds were involved in the pimping of Celeste WAP. As well, this is part of the problem of OPD, is they have more connection to the feds than they do to our city council. They have the FBI. This might be old. It might be obsolete, but they were, at least a few years ago, the #1 renter of office space in downtown Oakland, and they share a lot of this with OPD. OPD has a certain kind of prestige amongst the feds as being like a paramilitary group. They do a lot of shooting. They're real hard. They get a lot of intel. The FBI gave OPD bad intel in 2003 for the port when there was a protest there, and sent OPD in to violently assault a bunch of peaceful protesters.
I remember that.
It's the FBI, whether it's because they're not trustworthy in themselves or whether it's because they are in kind of a gang-like collusion with OPD. No, I wouldn't look towards the Justice Department or the feds for that. We have to look to the community. Oakland, we can handle it. It's not about handing this responsibility over to another authority. We just have to have that authority and that power ourselves.
Albert 106 writes, this has been going on for decades. Oh, by the way, I should add, 106 means he lives on the 106th, off 106th in East Oakland. But at any rate, he writes, this has been going on for decades. Do you remember the writers of Oakland Police Department? His question to you.
Personally, at the time, I was not aware of the story, but I became aware of it soon after. I've studied it. I've gone to lectures on it. It's a really in-depth event. I know a lot of the highlights of the injustice where they were caught planting evidence on people, just being the worst kind of corruption, and then eventually getting their jobs back. Even though we acknowledge, and this is a lot of, there's always a double standard here. We'll not prosecute cops for things, but then pay out, and there's a machine in place, and that's the writers. It sets it up. I really believe in the receivership, a lot of the intent behind it, but there are some problems with it where there's a lot of money getting made off of this. And it always goes back to the writers. They were, that was a big scandal that split everything open. But I can say just from personal experience, maybe some things I should plead the fifth on from living in the town for a minute. That this is not the worst kind of thing they do. What the writers did, that they got caught, but there's a lot of funny business still going on, and there always has been. Yeah.
Barry Lee adds, another question would be, would you as mayor just replace the current leadership at the Oakland Police Department?
Well,
and then he follows up. This is I got to pull the on top of that question. He adds, I just don't understand how they've been able to get away with this and nothing has been done by the current city leadership, which is an interesting observation. I should add, for anybody that wants to watch this, if you go to Zinni62 on YouTube, you can not only see the live stream of me asking and you hear Jesse's voice, but you can also read the comments and read the questions on the bar. There's a 900-word filter, which is virtually troll-proof. I'm sorry, Jesse, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, well, to answer both those questions, the reason nothing has been done is there's a lack of political will. And it's a giant political machine, and there are different parts with different amounts of power and influence. And our level of outrage amounts to nothing unless we are able to translate that into political will. In the past, unfortunately, we've seen political will created through riots. After a riot, then you get the body cams. Or very tragically, in the case of LaBelle Nixon murdering 4 OPD in one night, just after Oscar Grant was murdered, that created political will. That's terrorism. That, there are lots of ways to create political will. Yeah. And we have right now a great success with the new police commission. We have to keep pressuring it, though. It's not a guarantee. It could really get washed down. Sorry, what was the first part of that question again? What would I do?
Yeah. I'll repeat it. He said, he said, would you replace Barry asks, would you as mayor just replace the current leadership at Oakland Police Department?
Seeing it as a crisis, first there has to be a crisis response, and then there has to be a long-term solution. My crisis response is to immediately nullify the terror, the fear, the brutishness of OPD by replacing them with private security. They're already doing this in the hills, and OPD appreciates this. They say it's great for them because it frees up resources for them to patrol the flats. But with more OPD patrolling the flats, that's not desirable. That's not a good solution. We don't need more of that. What we need is security. We need safety. OPD is not able to do that. You run into a lot of problems trying to change anything with union contracts and lawsuits and things like that. But immediately, we could replace with private security, heavily regulate that private security, such as, insist on local hire. The model I have for it is actually, I'm not a big fan of privatization, but it has its place, especially in a crisis. Something like a charter school stipend system, where every neighborhood, there are 55 neighborhood watch areas in Oakland. Everyone lives in one. And you should find out where it is and get involved and try to straighten it out, because a lot of the time these neighborhood watches are just a bunch of Zimmermans sitting around. But you can get involved. But anyway, every NCPC, that's the Neighborhood Watch Program, should be able to get a stipend to hire their own security.
Hey, tell them what an NCPC is, by the way.
NCPC, Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council.
There you go.
And it was started, there are 55 of them. They're pretty small areas. They were started with a lot of great intent, but they turned into something terrible since. One of the major things about the NCPC program that is currently a problem is a shorthand that I've heard it described as is recently mugged white people with PTSD. And so they have some kind of thing, and they show up, and these NCPCs have a police officer assigned to them. A or the community resource officer. The community resource officer comes in and takes complaints.
Mm-hmm.
So these complaints often involve statements such as, oh, I think this house over here, I think they're drug dealers. I saw some people playing dice over here. And based on those complaints, people get evicted by the Alameda, by the city attorney. I'm forgetting if it's the city attorney or if it's O'Malley.
City attorney.
But there's no trial.
Well, I'm sorry.
That's right.
The DA. There's a county DA which handles higher crimes, and there's ours, and so basically the overlap, I believe, is at the felony level.
But yeah, they call it nuisance abatement. So if you complain against your neighbor, nuisance abatement hit the news a few years ago when people were complaining about the noise of a black church, and they complained through the NCPCs. The city responded by issuing a cease and desist, or we'll sue you if you out. And this is just like the woman at the lake calling the police. This is just more of the same thing. So if you could picture these things filled with women like that, or people like that, these people who just fundamentally they have a fear of black people, and it is through the NCPC system that they are able to evict their neighbors after only living here a few months, even. So that's a really aggressive gentrification machine, and it needs to get fixed. And my emergency response with getting private security addresses that problem as well by making the NCPCs more relevant to everyone in their neighborhood. And especially when it comes to local hiring for private security, people can enforce their own community standards to their own security team. And we have a lot of great private security companies in Oakland. It's a really diverse industry here. A lot of our private security companies even came out of the Oscar Grant movement. People just realizing and coming together to provide security, starting formal companies. It's been it's an entrepreneurial avenue, and these are people from our city. Unlike the police, over 90% of our police are from elsewhere. And so they don't have any connections to the community. But the local security companies do. So
yeah. I didn't realize that. That's a tall order. Hey, shifting gears a bit, what if you win, you don't have the luxury of focusing on one thing, as you know. In that context, what's your thought regarding the pursuit of a ballpark for the Oakland Athletics and the Oakland Raiders attempting to relocate to Las Vegas? Sorry.
Yeah. When it comes to the ballpark, there's two issues right there. Should we have the ballpark, and also, is that the best use of that particular space right there? When talking about the waterfront, I've heard a lot of really good ideas for developing the waterfront, things that would boost the economy all around. With the ball game, people a lot of times just come in and they leave, and they don't spend any money in the town.
Right.
But that area right there, that could serve a much better purpose, culturally, economically, and aesthetically. And should we have a ballpark? Well, I think yes. Sports is not my. I don't pay that much attention to it, somewhat. But I'm more into music, and these are my cultural avenues. I do understand that sports is a very important cultural. It's very important, especially even culturally. It's the venue for protests with NFL players kneeling, and it always has been. I personally am not that. I don't have much affinity with sports, but I completely respect it, and I think it needs to be defended. And when it comes to the Raiders, we need to keep them here. And I've watched it go back and forth for years now. We all have, and I think that I don't really know what's going on behind closed doors, but there's a lot going on behind closed doors. The deals are not being made right, and I can respect the position of the teams. They want to have the best deal for themselves. And I just wonder, with all the other kind of dysfunction we have in the city, if losing these teams isn't just a symptom of that. But basically, when you say, should I win? And I have my narrow focus, in the event of winning, if I win, it's because so many people felt my single issue that that's the priority for Oakland. But given that that would happen, I wouldn't try to pretend to have all the answers. Typically we elect a lawyer, and then the lawyer is supposed to have all the answers when it comes to economics, crime, culture, everything. I believe that the mayor should consult with more people. In fact, I would donate, if not my entire salary, a good portion of it to hiring people who are experts in the relevant areas, such as a criminologist, a sociologist, an economist, clergy person, people who understand these topics. Instead of saying one person has the answer, we need a model of the mayor that involves a lot of voices, a lot of connections to community. Because right now, our format of mayor is they're never around. They're never at a single meeting almost. They're really inaccessible, and they're definitely not an expert on all the things that they need to be an expert on. And I don't see this consultation happening. And so that is how I would handle my lack of expertise in every single field. Is I admit it, and I wish more politicians would admit it, and break break up the work, involve the city, involve more people.
What other than the police issue is you're burning something that you would like to improve with Oakland during your first one, or try to improve or embark upon a process of improving over the first 100 days of your administration?
Given my own background,
Sure.
I grew up in really hard situations. I was even in a gang when I was a teenager. I have a lot of understanding for the culture of nihilism that pervades in Oakland. The deaths, the murders. It's basically young people killing each other, and they're killing each other not over money or territory. It's not even formal gangs. It's something that I'm real familiar with, which is just a kind of a madness that is persistent in oppressed areas. And people get upset, and then they stab or shoot someone. I've lost some friends out here, and it's always been over something petty. And whenever I hear about something, it's always over something petty. And I believe that the solution to that is real easy if we have the political will to do it. And it has to do with basically providing for the youth and giving them something uplifting to nourish them, so that they don't care about these petty things, and they're not trying to live their life through violence and conflict. It can be so confusing at that age, when all you've seen is conflict. You think that's what the world's like, and then if you get past that critical age, you learn, hey, actually life's pretty easy, and we're not always having to fight each other.
That's right.
And I think that some real radical solutions could come quick, and we have all the resources we need for that. We have the economic resources, we have the cultural resources, and we have the enthusiasm here. For instance, Occupy Oakland led to a 17% drop in violent crime all across the city. So something was happening. Something amazing was happening. It was different, and it changed the psychology of people, especially in those in the minds that needed it most. It touched people's hearts. People were just curious. What is this weird thing? Even if they were cynical about it, even if they didn't like it, it was still just this weird thing, and people stopped killing each other for those weeks when Occupy Oakland was happening. We see the same thing with High Road Day. When High Road Day comes on, or any of the giant festivals we have, it always calms it down. It creates a community. It creates a reason. It gives young people a venue to go out and meet each other and make relationships and have fun or even have drama, but it's an elevated type of drama. It's not a drama that comes from hunger and ugliness. It just uplifts. And we have so much talent. We have so many people that want to do these things. So many groups are out on the street corner, basically asking for donations for their projects, such as Hip Hop for Change and a great number of other groups. They just need those resources. They need not just the resources. They can get a lot done off of very little. They can just get the support. They get the recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we also have a strong tradition of that. So it's not reinventing the wheel. It's basically just getting out of the way of the community. The government stops these things. People get together. They start to have a good time. They start to heal the community, and the government steps in and stops them. And slowly, I've seen the local government, stand aside and let people do it. Renegade street fairs where people sell art, things like this. They stopped rolling up the police vans on those, and just let the people of Oakland heal themselves. We want to do that. We know how to do that, but we can also assist. The government can definitely help a lot.
We're on with Jesse Smith. He's running for mayor of Oakland. And his comment about the police reminds me of a very recent problem on Twitter that revealed itself that I thought was shocking. It was a photograph that was posted of several officers, one to the extreme left brandishing a gun.
An assault rifle.
Thank you, an assault rifle. And thanks to your efforts, among others, fortunately, someone at OPD saw the light. But the simple fact that they point to this, Jesse, what does it say about the police department to this point, from your point of view?
Well, when I first said something to them, I was sympathetic. I've known cops. I've had cop friends, not Oakland cops, but one of my roommates was a cop I lived with for a few years, and I have a sense of their extreme culture they live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go ahead and say it. Just like combat veterans, they all have PTSD, and they're all neglected, and they're all abused, and they have, just like the youth in Oakland, they have a twisted nihilism about them. And
hey, Jesse, that's why I'm just going to turn on. I'm going to turn on the fan here because it's burning up where I'm at. So keep talking. I can hear you. I'm just
cool.
If you happen to see I'm getting up, I'm just going to turn on the fan behind me. Go ahead. Sorry. Otherwise,
cool.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Cool. And, in a lot of ways, the police are in the same situation as the youth in Oakland, in that there's a really sick, abusive culture that's turning good people bad. And even if it's not bad, it's, there's a lot of darkness involved. And I can see how, given their insular culture where they're all traumatized, that gun might make them feel good. I mean, I see an assault rifle. If I touch an assault rifle, I touched a gun once. It didn't feel good. But for some people, it's comforting, and it soothes them. It's a warm thing, and that's how different they are than the rest of us. And so I approached it compassionately. It was like, hey, this doesn't look to us the way it looks to you. And I tried to explain, especially in light of
you're too kind. I thought it was stupid. You are too kind.
Well, yeah, I mean, I try to have sympathy for them, and yeah, they blocked me, and they blocked anyone else who said anything about it, and made an issue of it. They blocked Celeste WAP. They blocked a number of people who were asking about it. That's when I tagged you, Saeed Karmouz. I wish I recalled her name. I can only see her Twitter handle in my head, but she's a police commissioner whose work I've really admired up on the dais during those meetings. She's part of the new police commission. She got involved, as well as other prominent activists, all spoke up. And the following day, I went to go to OPD with Celeste WAP. We were going to observe and report, just live tweet, basically, a workshop, a forum that they were doing. It's a public commons, you know. That's something that I do a lot. I just go to these police meetings. When we showed up, we were not allowed in, and we were treated very strangely. We were not given a coherent reason why we couldn't go in, and it was pretty clear. They just
Who was the person doing this?
Who was doing this? Officer by the name of Gilbert was the one that I talked to. This is in the headquarters downtown.
Sure, right.
So we go through this, and you know, it's upsetting. I have my own reasons to feel rather shook up when they're surrounded by police and they start to get really irrational. That gets my heart beating and my cortisol levels up, and obviously, you know, Celeste would be affected as well. So we walked out of there and got a cup of coffee and kind of settled our nerves, and come back next day talking about it. Next thing I know, they deleted that tweet and they unblocked me and everyone else. So somebody talked to somebody and got that message through, and I was really impressed and really grateful, because when I'm doing this research, you know, like as a candidate with one focus, I'm providing information to the public. That's my service to the public. And you know, so I get into that nitty gritty, and I'm looking at all their advertisements. I'm looking at all their messages, and I saw that, and I put it out there, and you know, I don't know if anyone's going to listen to it, so I'm really grateful to you. You made the video right away, and everyone else that called attention to it and spoke up on it. That was a really good feeling. And they unblocked me, which I think is great.
Yeah, they shouldn't have blocked you to begin with. Yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah, it really speaks to a cultural problem where they're shutting out anyone with a different idea. I mean, if you simply say Celeste WAP was a victim, that is a controversial statement in OPD. They have a whole alternate reality. I've heard some of these gossipy stories, and I don't even want to repeat them because they're just vile. But they're living in an alternate world, and they're protecting their bubble. This is a story across the nation. We're getting polarized. We have people that believe in all these various different fake news conspiracies, and the police, OPD, they're very much in a bubble, and they don't live here, so they don't talk to us, and it's real easy for them to go off into a different parallel universe. And yeah, that's what I think we see with that, and the way they responded. You know, a lot of people said something about that photo, and they argued it, they defended it, and when they defended it, I even felt sympathy for them. It was naive. They just really didn't get it, and they need, the police can't fix themselves, or maybe there's some kind of reason like any group can't fix themselves, just like they can't investigate themselves. They need us to criticize them in different ways, sometimes in a hostile or rude way, sometimes in a diplomatic way, but they need us to be on them and help them. That's basically what, you know, I'm trying to do, is help them to get better.
What is your view of the work of the current mayor, the incumbent who you're challenging, with respect to the Oakland Police Department?
When it comes to that side of her politics, it couldn't get any worse. She was involved in the cover-up of the race scandal. She assisted. She went after the whistleblowers. She produced the people who leaked the documents that let us know about this atrocity. She went after them. This Officer Gant, who was the investigator, homicide detective, who believed that O'Brien, the first cop to Celeste, who also committed suicide, he believed that he murdered his wife, and that's who got in trouble for a racist text scandal, which turned out to be completely untrue and unfounded.
Right.
This doesn't happen accidentally. And I don't know if Libby was a puppet of the little police clique, which consists of Lois, Holmgren, well, Lois is stepped aside, but Holmgren and Coleman and a variety of others. I don't know if she's a puppet of them, if she has a fear of them, or if she really lacks a moral compass, or if she has some kind of naive trust for them. But this isn't the only area she's been extremely foul in. There was an incident during the Say Her Name protests. There was a protest. Kat Brooks was a large part of that. If she wasn't the head organizer, she was a prominent figure in it. There were a lot of prominent figures, and this was a peaceful protest. It was very mature, very well done, and that was when there was surprise curfew, which was in violation of federal law and court orders. They surprise attacked this group of peaceful protesters. Lots of women were injured. Some women were taken. I mean, this is a march about the dignity of black women, and they took black women and strip searched them. That's just so heinous and hideous. At that time, there was a lot of back and forth. Whose idea was this Went's idea, or was it Libby's idea? And they passed that football back and forth. And so, if they're willing to share the blame in that, then Libby has no place speaking on matters of feminism and integrity and decency like that with these two outstanding violations in decency. And when it comes to the rest of her, I mean, these are outstanding examples, but on the general day-to-day, she just trusts them too much. She gives them the benefit of the doubt. And our police force will not be getting the benefit of the doubt. If they say something, we need independent verification of any claim. And just like a lot of tepid, she's a conservative for Oakland. She's our equivalent of a Republican.
Right.
We could never have anyone call themselves a Republican. So she's up in the hills. She has different experience with police in her life. She has different attitudes towards them. And her whole response to the crisis is abysmal.
Have you met Libby? Had a chance to have a one-on-one with her or something close to that?
No, she's really inaccessible. And the closest I ever got to chatting with her was in the 2014 election. Nobody really got to talk to her. She always had a different air of how she handled herself. Other candidates, you just walk right up to them. With Libby, you always got passed off to an assistant, and she was the only candidate in 2014 that really rolled like that. And so, yeah, she was inaccessible even as a candidate, and as a mayor, she's completely absent. That's not entirely the fault. That has to do with our charter, which is a different story. But she could be more engaged. She has the option, but and she hasn't been, as I've been talking about lately online. We haven't had any debates. And
no, I haven't. I'm glad you pointed that out. And I said online on Twitter, I'm happy to have one, and there's a way that can be done in a cyber fashion very quickly. That's accessible to many. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a venue, although I would like to do more than want to have one at a venue. Hey, I'm curious, moving along, shifting to sports. First of all, do you have a sports team? Are you a Raider fan? Of A's? Who do you like?
For some reason, I was a Raiders fan even when I lived in the Midwest, and I think it's just kind of the swagger and the vibe. The Raiders fans, of course, are legendary. But when it came to basketball, I don't know. I was just always into the Lakers.
Ooh.
I know. But that's what. Hey, I was.
Oh, there's static on this line. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Just kidding.
I know. But being up here in Oakland, I'm in enough bars while the game is on that I've fallen in love with the team, and you know, I got a lot of pride in the fact that, we're losing the Warriors as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that there's some overcompensation going on from the city with the loss of our two most iconic teams, that they're trying to emphasize the Athletics, and the Athletics don't have that same reputation and I mean, they're beloved, but we have the Raiders, you know, that's reputation and I mean, they're beloved, but we have the Raiders, you know, that's that particular temperament, you know, that tone, the Raiders, and then we have Warriors, you know, we're hardcore, and then there's the Athletics, and we have these goofy elephant statues everywhere, which I find offensive, not just to my own taste, but, you know, what are they doing? You know, it's they're really trying to make a lot out of the A's to try to hide the fact that we've just some kind of error just cost us this cultural our heritage with this, and it's you know, and I don't want that to turn into a negative sentiment towards our baseball team, but I don't like them being used that way. They shouldn't, you know, they're our team, and they shouldn't be a political shield for the errors of this administration and losing these teams.
Hey, we're on with Jesse Smith. He's running for mayor of Oakland. If you have a question, folks, you can type in your question. All you have to do is come to Zenny62 and then type in your question in the comments section. Hey, Jesse, out of curiosity, what is your view? What should we do? How can we end the homeless problem in Oakland? What would you do as mayor?
There are a lot of great ideas that I've heard, but there's one critical problem that we have, which is how we handle the market system. There are so many houses kept off market, and I'm not just talking about like houses that are perfectly usable, that are in great condition, and they're kept off market. I believe the number is 1,500 in Alameda.
Yes.
And then there's a scandal going on with our other real estate, our large historical buildings downtown and all across town. Actually, they're neglected, and there's a lot of like basically redlining going on. A fire killed some people, poor people near my home here, and that landlord. He's been in the news lately. It was it was too upsetting. I didn't really read the articles, but apparently he's really well off.
Hello, Jesse? Jesse, you there? Hello? Somehow we still have Jesse. I'm going to give his number out, but I don't hear him. Let me call him back. Something obviously happened there. And see what happened. So he was talking, and then, well, let's just retrieve him. I know he said he was in a cafe using the phone where he was. So this should be a painless exercise in the matter of retrieving him.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Somehow the call got dropped. Don't know what happened.
Cool. Yeah. So as I was on that very morbid topic concerning homelessness, we have a situation.
As you were on that morbid topic, someone came over and sabotaged your phone, right?
Yeah, might have been the feds. No, they'll do that. But there's one example is a building called the Key Systems Building.
Yes,
it's a historical monument. It's on 11th and Broadway.
Right.
And about 10, 15 years ago, me and friends, we would break into that place and throw parties. Beautiful on the inside. I have a lot of affection for it, and it's been owned by a particular company that it's gotten past the split over and over, and it just decades pass. And the company that owns it has to pay the city a fine. I forget what that figure is. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that they have to pay the city as a fine for not developing this property. It's gross negligence. But because the overall property is worth $10 million, it's worth it for them to sit on it and let it rot if the market moves even an inch, because they'll make all that money back. So there's a lot of incentive in our system to allow buildings to go unused. We have more than enough building and resources to house everyone, cheaply or subsidized or even at market if somehow that worked out like the Indies believe it would. But no matter what solution gets proposed, as long as we have huge swaths of territory that are empty and not inhabited because of market problems and bad laws, then we'll, any solution that we have, like a crisis management, it just gets so dehumanizing. Like we have, now that's right in my neighborhood, where the new one is, and I know the people in the camps. I've got some friends down there, and I've been in some of the tents, and people make their home in there, and some of them are pretty cozy, and people, they care about their space, and they have the personal, they have their life, their whole life right there. And the city comes by and throws their stuff in a dumpster, and it would have destroyed a lot more homes that day if it weren't for the actions of, I should know his name, but I only know Twitter handles, at Blake Don't Crack. He feeds people. He's very active.
Can you repeat that name again? I want to make sure people. Can you repeat that name again? I want to make sure people pick that up, please.
Yeah, at Blake Don't Crack, and that's Blake BLAKE.
At Blake Don't Crack. Got it. At Blake Don't Crack, and on Twitter. Okay.
He got down there and he rang the bell, and the community responded and blocked the dumpsters and blocked the city and the police and prevented people's homes from being destroyed. And now the proposal that Libby is pushing is, after destroying their homes, push them into these sheds that have no utility. They're behind barbed wire. They're packing people in two at a time. These, even a prison cell has heat and plumbing, and it's really inhumane. And if these tough sheds were such a desirable alternative to these tents that people have made homes of, then why don't they just open up the sheds and invite them over? It's actually better. They're just destroying their homes and then shoving them in there. It's really inhumane. And another measure that they're taking, also in my neighborhood, is they bought a building, I believe, for $7 million. Basically, it used to be a really, really hardcore dope house back in the day, and it's settled down quite a bit. The whole area has. And it has been a place where people live, basically undocumented citizens, like people who are born here but don't have an ID. We have a lot of citizens that are just really off the grid because of unfortunate circumstances. And that was a place you could go. And if you just had the cash, you could stay there for on a night-to-night basis. And a lot of people just live there continually, but off books. That building was also owned by another scandalous slumlord. And when the city bought it, they said that they were going to change it into a shelter, providing 70 beds. They claimed that only 10 people currently live there. That is not true. So this means that the homeless shelter that they're building is actually kicking people out of their homes. Nothing that they're doing makes any sense, because real solutions require political will that nobody seems to have.
No, I said to Kat Brooks when she was on, why can't we just give them $3,000 in addition to the programs we have, not as a replacement? But it seems to me that we try to do everything but the basic thing, which is just giving them money. I don't get it.
Exactly. Salt Lake City has a program where they just don't allow people to be homeless. If you're homeless in Salt Lake City, they give you a home. And what they discovered is it saves the city money because there's not all the emergency room bills, there's not all the other problems, and the way we have our camps, it's extremely unsanitary. Pestilence and disease are huge issues and potentially could get really bad. In LA, they recently had an outbreak of, I believe it was hepatitis, or some disease like that, as a result of their homeless problem, and it spread into the restaurants. Where we eat is, it's not. Our restaurants are not safe anymore because there's lots of disease and filth as a result of this neglect, and people down there they do their best to run it. These are communities. They have people who are kind of the boss on the block, watch out and make sure everything is okay, and there's people who they're the best with the with doing fire, and there's people who are really vulnerable and mentally ill, and then people look after them. And these are full-fledged communities, and they do their best to keep clean. They have rules amongst themselves to try to keep sanitation up, but it's just not tenable. They don't have plumbing, and like you said, we know the solution. We can give them money, we can give them shelter. The Uber building or the Sears building. This was a foolish idea to give this company, this prized jewel of downtown. As an economic engine, the Sears building could solve a lot of problems. Yeah. And we're just not using it because we have to sell property to corporations. Why? That's not helping us. But that's the most politically expedient thing to do.
How are you on time? We're at 1 hour, 1 minute, and counting. How's your time?
Oh, has it been? Wow. Hey, again, props for doing long form like this. It's really great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm great on it.
Okay.
But I know it's later where you are, so
I just want to ask you, how is your campaign going? And I ask because I know you're a single issue candidate, but you're running for mayor. You have a platform that the common activist doesn't have. Since you've announced, how has the campaign gone? How can people join your campaign? What's the strategy?
Well, myself, I have very, very modest goals for votes and ambitious goals for benefiting the community through the campaign. So I've been mostly spending a lot of my time not fundraising or even promoting that much, but just doing the work of research and informing the public about what's going on. This season, I got to admit that when the debates didn't happen and when things didn't kick into gear at the same pace as they have previous elections, I, like a lot of other candidates, kind of got caught unawares. It's pretty late in the season right now, but
is the League of Women Voters
going to happen?
Is the League, because you brought up something that's absolutely correct. I want to reiterate that point. By now, we would have had at least 2 debates. We would have had the League of Women Voters, and we would have had maybe the Chamber of Commerce or some other organization. But to this point, and this is, to this point, to buttress what Jesse's saying, this is what, May 23rd, about to become May 24th, still nothing. And in fact, let me see if the number of candidates for mayor has changed. I said it was 11, but I realized I haven't looked in some time because I've been deep in other stuff. But the point of looking at this is to emphasize that as we have progressed through this, as we moved through the city discussion of who should be mayor, no one at all. And this is interesting. No one has said officially, we're going to do a debate, and the debate is going to be here. You know, that's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. Why have we gotten to this point? What's going on?
Well, my belief is that the power structure doesn't want debates because Libby is safest. She's benefited by it. Now, the first debate of 2014 was thrown by Make Oakland Better Now, and they're a policy group and they're extremely pro-police.
Right. And
you can't get more pro-police than Libby Schaaf, so they don't want a debate. Maybe the League of Women Voters, I don't know of anything in their agenda that would suggest that kind of an ill motivation, but maybe they are satisfied with her. There's also a lot of the debates always establish for the public and the media what this election is about. Is it about police? Is it about public health and safety? Is it about gentrification? That is established through debates. So as long as there's substantive discussion going on, and where we're at is Donald Trump doesn't like her. Donald Trump doesn't like me either. That's not a distinction. And kudos to her, props for not only was it a game on her behalf to earn his foul mouth, but it was also great that she did. I won't take that away from her. It's great that she rang the bell and warned us about ICE.
Yeah.
But now the DNC is backing her up. Nancy Pelosi is cheering her on. She's become an icon as an anti-Trump figure, but there's no substance in that. There's no substance behind the backing. It's not based on issues.
But how do you?
But
I got to ask.
Polarization and animosity.
Right. I got to ask you this question though. It's to continue a conversation we're having on Twitter. How do you counter that? Because everyone can point out what's wrong with, in their view, what she may have done or said. But the simple fact of the matter is that she's got this gigantic ass spotlight.
Yeah.
How do you get your own gigantic ass spotlight?
Yeah. I'm hoping that the community can create that, like you and the local media, the activists, that we can create a spotlight that, hey, maybe it falls on me, maybe it falls on Kat, maybe it falls on Saeed Carmouche. But we need to control it because right now it's being controlled by a large corporate media machine and the DNC. And Libby has a lot of game and a lot of money, and it's kind of it's looking like a rich person's election. At the same time, she's really weak, and there's a frailty there. If they just want to try to wait until election day and hope no one ever talks about anything else, then if that's her strategy, she could win that way. But there's a lot of ways to thwart that. My biggest interest, I want to win. I believe my solutions are best, but I care more about the process generating the best candidate. A process that gets more people to vote, that creates a mayor for the first time that has a mandate. That we need a mayor with a mandate that truly has wide popular support.
Now, I wonder if it's really a rich person's thing or maybe the lack of application of tech. Whatever it is, I do think that there's a lot we aren't doing as a culture in our city. The matter of Libby's national exposure aside, and whatever PR firm set that up, and I think I know who might have been, we have not had a debate. We have not done anything to shed light on the fact that you have 11 candidates running for mayor. And now, as a person who's, full disclosure, Libby's my god sister. I love her very much. I almost ran for mayor myself. I considered last fall, but, I have an obligation to be here with my mom. And, it's a difficult road of life here because of of what I have to do, but you know, such is life. But beyond my 31-year friend and the fact that her parents are truly my godparents, there is the city that I love, and I have never seen a time when people ran for office, important offices in Oakland, virtually unchallenged. We let that happen with the city attorney, you know?
Right.
And we seem to be letting it happen in a way with mayor, which is why I'm taking it upon myself to do these long form talks. So with Syed, with Kat, with you, you know, whoever else I can get a number in, and because that's the way Oakland has been. I remember when I worked for Elihu, even before I worked for Elihu, when I was writing for the Montclarian in '94 when Elihu ran for re-election, there were 9 candidates, and 8, I would say 7 of the 9 candidates ran just because they hated Elihu. It was hilarious. I mean, that was their only platform. Why are you running? I hate the mayor.
Right. Yeah.
Really? Can you do better than that? I hate the mayor. It was hilarious, you know. That was, but they were running, you know. And then there was one person. I said 7 of the 8. Well, actually 6. I should say 6 because at least 7, 8. There was one person that didn't run like that. That guy was Ted Dang, and Ted had a fantastic campaign manager named Dwayne Bauman. And Dwayne and I got to know each other, became friends. And I think it was a case for him of loose lips sink ships. Because we met at what was then called the Golden Bear and what is now called Room 389. And I remember asking him, I said, how did you come to work for Ted Dang? And at this time I wrote for the Montclarian, okay? And he said to me, I figured, and I quote, that if I could get a Chinaman elected, I could beat a Chinaman. And yeah, and he was referring to the then great council member Michael Wu in Los Angeles, who he beat with his client and candidate Richard Reardon, who became mayor of Los Angeles. That was the quote. That was what he was referring to. So I mean, I, you know, consumed my beer, went home, and I wrote a column, and I stuck that quote in there, and I didn't intend for it to be a torpedo, but that's what happened. You know, Dwayne wanted to kill me. It took him years to get over that one, but his candidate at that point was flying high, and the reason was why is that Ted, who is still a well-known real estate broker in Oakland, fairly well-known, did things like he I'll just say, and he probably, if he heard this, he would wince at my description. He created stunts. Okay. He would, you know, he would have not the standard press conference, which I think, by the way, is press conferences should be obsolete. I mean, but why they exist at all, I don't know. But you know, you can do your own press conference with a YouTube channel. You don't need, and let somebody have the copy of it and all that. But I digress. My point is that he would do a press conference, but it wouldn't be a normal press conference. It would be an event where he was handing the business tax and license people a complaint or a certificate or he would do something to shed light on a malady in Oakland, and he would do it using the press. It was very effective. The things that affected you, and you know, that's how he came very close. Let me put it this way: he scared the hell out of Elihu. Okay, Elihu wound up winning by a landslide, but it woke him up. It woke him up. Yeah. And that's what, you know, I say. That's what I don't see yet at this. And what happens is when you have a great, and I know Libby doesn't like it, but the whole point is when you have an election that's competitive, the incumbent gets better. The incumbent is forced to get better. It makes the city better. It makes us pay attention to our problems and fix them. We cannot have a city of Oakland. I didn't mean to go off on this. Sorry about this, Jesse. But
no. This is, yeah.
We can't have a city of Oakland that has this moribund attitude toward, elections. It's horrible. It's bad. I mean, if it winds up that Libby loses, then maybe she lost to a better candidate. Maybe she didn't address things she should have. But no incumbent should.
Or if she wins, she can win a couple different ways. She can win with nobody turning out the vote and just based on, Trump doesn't like her, I recognize her name. Or she could win after really engaging in issues and the community and establishing her cred on these things and getting support from the public.
Right.
It doesn't help anyone for her to win the way she's trying to win right
now. Exactly. But we're sort of helping it out, right? There's no Ted Dang around that says, hey, boom. I mean, there isn't, and I'm being vocal about it in the hope that somebody steps forward and becomes, that person. Or a combination, we need that. Because we have to have a better race. Hey, John Marks. John Marks, welcome. You have a question for Jesse Smith? John Marks is one of our longtime nightly viewers. Jesse's running for mayor of Oakland. But you know what I'm saying, Jesse? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. Hey, so in an effort to get to John Marks says Libby Schaaf needs to lose. John Marks is not shy. John is pissed off with respect to the Raiders. Hey, so what are your favorite haunts? What do you like to go to around Oakland?
I love downtown. I love downtown in any city. That's always where I gravitate. I don't really get out to the east, and I understand that that's kind of a thing where people either stay on one side or the other, and geography and public transportation kind of contributes to that. So we got these two different cities here. I like walking around West Oakland. That's kind of, it looks like the kind of neighborhoods I grew up in the Midwest. It's kind of it just feels good in the heart to walk around there. I was spending a little bit of time out in Piedmont area for a while, which I've been here for 10, 15 years and I've never been up to Piedmont. And wow, that's an exceptional kind of place. So,
for those of you who don't know, Piedmont is the high-end area of Oakland.
Kind of made me feel a little nervous to be there at first, but then after a while, I got real acclimated. Just that this kind of calm. The police are all in a different kind of mood. There's so much beauty and flowers everywhere. But yeah, no, I love my downtown. I spend way too much time at City Hall, and I just love the Art Deco architecture around here. I'm a real big nerd on architecture. And
what's your favorite Oakland building?
Yeah. Oh, the Key Systems building. It's not only because of its architecture and my own personal history with it, but its personal history is related to, it was the first building that basically ran the whole public transportation system at the beginning. And I just really like that, the train station out on Wood Street out west, the abandoned train station, which I haven't been to since it was legal. I guess they do tours there now.
West Oakland, you talking about Union Station in West Oakland?
Yeah, abandoned train station at the very end. Wood Street is the last street out there, and back when I would go out there, you'd crawl through a fence and head up there, and it was this beautiful display of really excellent graffiti. It was like the Louvre of graffiti. And if you could get lucky, you could poke your head on the inside and see all the marble construction on the marble interior on the inside. And but now I guess you can go out there and it's legit. You don't have to bring any bolt cutters. So,
hey, John Marks has a question for Jesse Smith. He writes, how would you tackle or handle in negotiations with current Oakland sports teams? How would you handle negotiating, at least with Mark Davis? That's, I mean, yeah, it's open to the question.
I absolutely wouldn't, and I don't think Libby should either. We're not experts in that. I might call you.
Cool. Sounds good to me. I like that. That's a smart answer.
Yeah.
To which John Marks followed up with vote for Jesse Smith in Oakland. So there you go. Are you thinking of partnering with anyone in terms of ranked choice?
Yeah. I really believe in that. That's actually from studying ranked choice around the country. That's the only way to win. You have to build alliances. If you go negative, it's suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build alliances. You have to build that base. And I've been in a lot of conversation with Saeed Karamuz.
Good man. Yeah.
I really like his police proposal.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard from Kat. You know, her campaign. She's trying to win, so she's going to be real busy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't heard from her. I haven't seen any defunding, of course. But I like Saeed's police plan the most because of the nuts and bolts of it, and as well, he has that idea for an entire restructuring of the police for a long-term solution that I highly agree with. It eliminates the hierarchy problem. Right now, we have a pyramidal hierarchy where we have the chief, the lieutenants, and the captains, and then it goes down from there, and that's not working. We need something that's a completely different structure, and then we can still have police as we know it. As well, there's a lot of different proposals for police. He mentioned something in his speech, his announcement speech, where he said that he would change the name once achieving the goals that he has. He would change the name of Oakland Police Department to Oakland Public Health and Safety Department.
Wow.
Putting the emphasis,
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and in conversation with them, I repeat points that I've heard. Talking to other people who study this, it's when police show up, 99% of the time they don't need a gun on them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a problem. Like they shouldn't. You don't need a gun at 99% of police calls, and his plan addresses that. What kind of response? Who responds? Is the cop? Is it a social worker? Is it a mental health expert? Who responds? Why do we spend all this money on AR-15s and tanks? Probably get a lot more benefits spending that same money on something other than military gear. We only have a military solution to everything through our current police department, but we don't need more military gear.
Right.
So that I found that really inspirational. The Oakland Public Health and Safety Department. So right now, I'm going to wait until I hear on anything because I only get to endorse one. So I want to take it all in, but right now he's got the hottest ideas on the long-term solution.
Hey, so do you have a website, or what are you using online or mobile to serve as your campaign base where people can reach out and get in contact with you?
Right now I just got a Twitter,
cool.
And that is Oak Smith, O-A-K Smith, 2018.
Oak Smith 2018. Follow him on Twitter.
It's the same at Gmail. Sorry, what was that?
I said follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, thank you. And it's the same Gmail, Oak Smith 2018. If anyone has ideas, one of the things when campaign season is on us, and this is another thing that is missing from this cycle, is a lot of charitable events happen. Say like a free clinic will host the candidates and people can meet the candidates, and that winds up raising a lot of money for the clinic. Food drives, things like that. A lot of charitable things. Just by having candidates come through, people get excited, they come through. They don't even have to give money to the candidates. They can donate to the cause that the candidates show up at. So that's something I'm real interested in. Working with people, working with other candidates in the community to use this energy from the election process to get people fed, get them housed, get people employed. And yeah, so if you just want to reach out, if you got ideas you want me to promote or to share with me, please do.
Hey, so I think we're having you back. Malcontent just chimed in. I'm sure he's going to be reaching out to you with questions. And but Jesse, I think this has been a fantastic 1 hour and almost 30 minutes of of talk. Like I said, can't get it anywhere else, folks. Right here. So if you want to know about the candidate, this is now the definitive work to find out what's on the mind of Jesse Smith as he runs for mayor of Oakland.
Yeah, it really is, man. Thank you. This has been a really good process. I feel like I really expressed my ideas. Thank you.
Oh yeah, hey, thank you for coming on. And like I say, it's not going to be the last time, and I'm going to figure out a format to have a good debate, have something that really shakes things up. Oh, yeah. I meant to ask you before we close, how the heck did we get to a point where Jennifer Schulte felt like, I mean, because what she did has happened to me, and I've talked about it, and there's an Emmett Till lynch mob mentality going on in Adams Point. How do we get rid of it? Or have we? Because of what she did. Did that shake things up and scare people and put them on alert? Do you realize that the two women nationwide the two people that made videos that brought the light to this problem were white, not black? Just FYI. But, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Really? Yeah, I'm going to try to get Michelle on the show too. We're Facebook connected, so that's going to be my next project, is to get her on. She's the person that made the video that outed Jennifer Schulte. Yes, yeah. So I'm quite excited about that. But anyway, enough about my voice. How do we get here in your view, and how do we stop it?
I've lived in different parts of the country, and some parts of the country are just way more racist, and there's different types of racism. And what she was doing, it looks familiar to me. I think maybe a lot of white people don't see it, and maybe this is a time when they can have it explained to them, and they can understand the different modalities of racism better. Especially with the Airbnb incident, when a woman called the police on, I forget his name, the great reggae star, his granddaughter. She is unapologetic. She tries to explain her actions. They were rude to me, so I called the cops. So this mentality. There's a lot of cluelessness. And what I think needs to be done is exactly what's being done. Barbecues, just come right out. When this happened before, well, it happens a lot on that side of the lake. A guy named Sean E. McDonald came down during people were drumming during a lunar eclipse, and this made a lot of news. And he grabbed them and assaulted them and screamed and called the cops. And then the cops in that case, they held those men until 1:30 in the morning as if they had done something wrong. And this is something that I think is worth noting about this incident, is that this time OPD didn't follow through with the request from the racist, and maybe that's a sign of improvement. But just as then, people showed up and they started drumming, and these barbecues, it has become nationwide. In the press, I saw New York Times wrote up on this, and
it was on Saturday Night Live. Hey, it was on Saturday Night Live. I saw it. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
These barbecues, and then the barbecues themselves become like these cauldrons of healing and people learning and expanding things. There was an incident that happened. I just had this related to me. The Black Rider Liberation Party. There's like the Black Panther. They hold it down right here, and they were out there showing their presence as a security force for the barbecue. And a little kid got separated from his parents for just a quick sec, as can unfortunately happen.
Mm-hmm.
And a cop went to take the kid, and people responded badly to this. You know, this cop taking this little black kid into the back of a police car. It's really unsettling.
Yeah.
And there was a tussle over it, and then the kid instinctively ran to the riders because, you know, they looked official. And he ran to the riders and he said to them, "Where's my dad?" And then the riders found the dad.
Wow.
And then it was the community, and then the cops took off, and, you know, the community showing themselves and the police that they can handle themselves, and, you know, this great pride, you know, this great proud moment, and that gets to the kind of thing I was talking about with interrupting the nihilism and the culture and the sickness.
But, you know,
something like that happening.
Those were our police that did that, that ran off.
Mm-hmm.
That,
but yeah, it was OPD that got into the conflict with the crowd because nobody wanted to see, you know, because then what?
Wow, as opposed to being,
oh God,
and you would think that they would be one with the crowd, have a good time, and not react to, from their position, the very real possibility the crowd didn't want them there. They could say, "Hey, look, you know, we're here we just want to have a good time. That's all, you know, and we want you all to have a good time." And I don't know the incident. This is the first time I've heard about it, but it sounds like they didn't do that. And then they took off, and that's sad. That's really sad. That's more than sad. That's
you know, it really,
that's an incident.
It really emphasized the sense of other. Yeah.
Something else. All right, sir. I better cut off before I have you on for way too long.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man, and I'll talk to you again.
You got it, definitely. Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, see you.
Okay, see you. Hey, Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah, stick around for a second. Folks, I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll focus on the dramatic events that occurred at the NFL owners meeting. And I've got a lot of stories to tell from what transpired and what I thought was going to be a short week, but turned out to be a bit longer. But the biggest news item of the day from the NFL owners meeting had nothing to do with the anthem, and it had everything to do with a fundamental change in the game. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right. Thanks, everybody. Stick around, Jess. Thanks a lot. See you guys. See you.